Hi there, this is Nicole Forrester, real estate broker with eXp Realty. I'm here today to talk to you about the pros and cons of moving from the 416 to the 905 in the Greater Toronto Area. First off, what is the 416 versus the 905? For anyone who doesn't know, the 416 was the phone number area code of Toronto originally. Originally, we were boroughs, Scarborough, North York, York, East York, and they amalgamated a few years back, and they're known as the City of Toronto. That City of Toronto original area code for phone numbers was 416. Just outside of what we are calling the City of Toronto geographically is what we are considering the 905. It's the suburban area outside of the city core. That 905 was the first area code given to those properties and those areas just outside of Toronto. So moving from the 416 to the 905 means moving from the city core, the geographical area known as the City of Toronto, to the surrounding area, the 905, around that city core. Those two together, the 416 and the 905, make up the Greater Toronto Area, which is known as the GTA. You know, that's where I'm working. I was born and raised in the City of Toronto, and I made the move personally from the 416 into the 905 about 10 years back as my family was expanding. So I want to talk to you about doing that because, as we know, in the Greater Toronto Area, that happens a fair bit. So let's talk pros and cons of moving from the 416 to the 905. First off is transit. Transit in the 416 is run by the TTC. The TTC is large and well organized. They have subways, there are buses, there are streetcars. The infrastructure is great. So from a walking score, if you're not driving, staying within the 416 for transit is a plus. We do have transit in the 905, and each sort of community outside of the 416 handles that. Go trains are very familiar to everyone in the 416 and 905. That's often the fastest and easiest ways for people in the 905 to get to the downtown core via express go trains. So although those things, the buses and the transit is growing in the 905 and each individual community outside of the 905, nothing beats the TTC and the infrastructure of the subway and the RTs and the streetcars that the 416 has. Another thing that's interesting, property tax. So the property tax in the 905 is double what it is in the 416. So that means properties that are relatively the same size, let's say you've got a detached property in the City of Toronto, the 416, you're looking at property tax of $2,500 a year, as an example. In the 905, you're going to be looking at $5,000 for a comparable house. Why is it double? Infrastructure. 416 has been around longer and money's been pouring into it longer, and it's built up the infrastructure. The entire 905, although it seems, and they have been growing for a long period of time, these are communities that are still growing and building infrastructure and therefore have a higher property tax bill. So now let's talk about a pro for the 905, which is the double land transfer tax that you incur on properties that you buy in the 416. So in the geographical area of the 416, you're going to be paying an Ontario land transfer tax. You also pay that in the 905, but you pay an extra land transfer tax in the 416 to the City of Toronto. In the 905, you do not do that. You only pay the one land transfer tax, which is the Ontario land transfer tax. Commonly, people move from the 416 to the 905 for this factor, which is a bigger bang for your buck. And of course, in the years when we've seen prices escalate, that difference has shrunk up a little bit. But generally, when you're selling a home in the 416, those properties, because they are in the City of Toronto and closer to our core or our epicenter of real estate in Toronto, which I consider our downtown core, they're more expensive. Bottom line, they're more expensive and they're smaller. So as you branch out into the 905, whether you're going east, whether you are going north, and whether you're going west, generally what happens is you get greater amount of land and property for your money, bigger bang for your bucks. And we are still seeing that to today's date. Okay, and the final, but I think one of the most important things that I personally realized and have gained the benefit of from moving to the 905 is this, and it's for families. A lot of the younger families with kids have moved into the 905 opposed to the 416. So we've got really strong communities for children and families outside of the 416. We're talking about massive numbers in sports and soccer and schools and programs. So you do really get a different feel as far as being part of a smaller community just outside of the 416 with all of the convenience of the 416, because we are literally a pinky toe outside of it, depending on where you are in the 905. Once again, moves are very personal and there are a million different factors to weigh in. Having a conversation with a realtor is always a great first step to sort of sorting out and help prioritizing what some of those needs for you might specifically be. Always feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or you just want to talk shop or strategy about your next move. 416-909-2389. And once again, this is Nicole Forrester, real estate broker with eXp. Thanks and hope you have a great week.